that those who are fighting according to the principles of the Kshatriya Dharma, that they attained the same nature as the Supreme Lords. Yataha, because Matandhaha api prapuhu ityaha. Because even those who were mad, were blinded by madness, they also attained him. Lalita gatischa vilasascha valku hasadischa manjugatyadibhihi atiyehi tadiyehi va kalpitaha uruhumanaha puja yasam taha. So these ladies, they were mad in ecstasy and they worshipped the Supreme Lord with that spirit. Their gentle movements, their sweet smiles, and so on. Ataha, katena madena andhaha vashaha. They were helplessly attached to the Supreme Lord. Ateva tadekachittattvena, and therefore, since their minds were exclusively fixed on him, tasya kritam karma govardhana uddharanadikam anukritavartyaha gopavadvaha. Therefore, these comfort damsels, these wives of the cowherd, they imitated the Supreme Lord's pastimes. His pastimes refer to his lifting the Govardhan hill and so on. Makara lopaha tu arshaha ila prasiddham. And this was very well known. Tasmin me ratihi astu iti purvena eva anvayaha. May my attraction be fixed on that Lord. By intense ecstasy and loving service, the damsels of Brajabhumi attained qualitative oneness with the Lord by dancing with him on an equal level, embracing him in nuptial love, smiling at him in joy, and looking at him with a loving attitude. The relation of the Lord with Arjuna is undoubtedly praiseworthy for devotees like Bhishmadev, but the relation of the gopis with the Lord is still more praiseworthy because of their still more purified loving service. By the grace of the Lord, Arjuna was fortunate enough to have the fraternal service of the Lord as chariot driver. Fraternal service, as a friend, as a, which is comparable to the relation between brothers. But the Lord did not award Arjuna with equal strength. The gopis, however, practically became one with the Lord by attainment of equal footing with the Lord. Bhishma's aspiration to remember the gopis is a prayer to have their mercy also at the stage of his life, at the last stage of his life. The Lord is satisfied more when his pure devotees are glorified. Therefore, Bhishmadev has not only glorified the acts of Arjuna, his immediate object of attraction, but has also remembered the gopis who were endowed with unrivaled opportunities for rendering loving service to the Lord. The gopis' equality with the Lord should never be misunderstood to be like the Sayujya liberation of the impersonalist. There is this Mayavadi scholar, Madhusudana Saraswati. He came up with the idea that the greatest spiritualists were the gopis because they realized that they were Krishna. And the evidence for that is they were imitating Krishna during the Rasa dance. During episode of the Rasa dance. So they think that the gopis are actually deep within their impersonalists. That's not the case. They were simply imitating him out of separation from him. The equality is one of perfect ecstasy, where the differential conception is completely eradicated, for the interests of the lover and the beloved become identical. There's oneness in interest. 41. Munigana Nripavarya Sankulenta Sadasi Yudhishthira Rajasuya Esham Arhanam Upapeda Ikshaniyo Mamadrishi Grochara Esha Aviratma. At the Rajasuya Yajna, sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthira, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and the learned orders. And in that great assembly, Lord Shri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remember the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. Jagat Uchatam Anusmarannaha. And then he continuously remembered that Lord Shri Krishna was worshipped by the entire world. It means by the entire civilized world. Muni Ganair Nripavaryahi cha Sankule Vyapte Antasadasi Sabha Madhye. In the assembly crowded by sages and the best of the kings, Yudhishthirasya Rajasuya. And that was during the time of Yudhishthira's Rajasuya. Esham Muni Gana Dinam Ikshaniyaha. At that time, the Lord was worthy of being seen and was the cherished object of vision of these sages and the best of the kings. Aho Rupam, Aho Mahima, Ityevam Ascharyena Vilokaniyaha San. So at that time, he was eagerly sought after through their vision. And they were thinking, oh, what beauty, oh, what greatness or glory. Tan Arhanamupapede Prapa. So in that way, he was worshipped. Eshaha Jagatam Atma. May the soul of the universes, may the soul of the worlds, Amadrishi Gocharaha Drishti Vishayaha San, may he be the object of my vision. Avi Prakato Vartate, and may he remain like this. Aho me bhagyam divavaha. The implication is, oh, how fortunate I am. Bhishma has this, experiences this astonishment. Purport. Okay, this instead of after, it should be before. This is an editorial mistake. Before gaining victory in the battle of Kurukshetra. And here is a shadow file of it. Before gaining victory in the battle of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthira, the emperor of the world, performed the Rajasuya sacrificial ceremony. The emperor in those days, upon his ascendance to the throne, would send a challenge horse all over the world to declare his supremacy. And any ruling prince or king was at liberty to accept the challenge and express his tacit willingness, his implicit willingness, either to obey or to disobey the supremacy of the particular emperor. One who accepted that challenge had to fight with the emperor and establish his own supremacy by victory. The defeated king would have to sacrifice his life, making a place for another king or ruler. So Maharaj Yudhishthira also dispatched such challenging horses all over the world, and every ruling prince and king all over the world accepted Maharaj Yudhishthira's leadership as the emperor of the world. After this, all rulers of the world under the regime of Maharaj Yudhishthira were invited to participate in the great sacrificial ceremony of Rajasuya. Such performances required hundreds and billions of dollars, and it was not an easy job for a petty king. Such a sacrificial ceremony, being too expensive and also difficult to perform under present circumstances, is now impossible in this age of Kali. Nor can anyone secure the required expert priesthood to take charge of the ceremony. So after being invited, all the kings and learned sages of the world assembled in the capital of Maharaj Yudhishthir. The learned society, including the great philosophers, religionists, physicians, scientists, and all great sages, was invited. That is to say, the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas were the topmost leading men in society, and they were all invited to participate in the assembly. The Vaishyas and Shudras were unimportant elements in society, and they are not mentioned herein. Due to the change of social activities in the modern age, the importance of men has also changed in terms of occupational positions. But in today's world, it is the Vaishyas and Shudras who are now glorified so much, not the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. Not to the same extent, but definitely. So in that great assembly, Lord Sri Krishna was the cynosure of neighboring eyes. He was the center of attraction of the eyes of all those who were near him. Everyone wanted to see Lord Krishna, and everyone wanted to pay his humble respects to the Lord. Bhishmadev remembered all this and was glad that his worshipable Lord, the personality of Godhead, was present before him in his actual formal presence, in his official. He was actually present before him in an externally visible form. So, to meditate on the Supreme Lord is to meditate on the activities, form, pastimes, name, and fame of the Lord. That is easier than what is imagined as meditation on the personal feature of the Supreme. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that to meditate upon the impersonal feature of the Supreme is very difficult. It is practically no meditation or simply a waste of time, because very seldom is the desired result obtained. The devotees, however, meditate upon the Lord's factual form and pattern. And therefore, the Lord is easily approachable by the devotees. This is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita 12.9. The Lord is non-different from his transcendental activities. It is indicated also in this shloka that Lord Sri Krishna, while actually present before human society, especially in connection with the battle of Kurukshetra, was accepted as the greatest personality of the time, although he might not have been recognized as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The propaganda that a very great man is worshipped as God after his death is misleading, because a man after his death cannot be made into God. Nor can the personality of Godhead be a human being, even when he is personally present. Both ideas are misconceptions. The idea of anthropomorphism cannot be applicable in the case of Lord Krishna. Achyutanam Prabhu.
Prabhuji, in this purport, when it is mentioned the learned society, including philosophers, religionists, physicians, then scientists. So, what scientists of that time were doing? Like, what kind of science was there? Apart from the materialistic science and inventions and discoveries.
Yeah. There were always people who were there are so many branches of knowledge in the Vedic system of knowledge. There are people who, it's not this kind of research-based science, but there were those who are working on matter. Plenty of people. Ayurveda itself is one example. But there are certain, like the pursuit of vibhutis amongst the yogis. That is also a little bit like modern science only. They're trying to understand and manipulate matter. These kind of people always existed. Even now they exist. The best way to describe them as scientists. Very much interested in the material world. In fact, some of the systems of philosophy like Vaisheshika and Sankhya, their method of contemplation is similar to the theoretical scientists of today also. They're simply trying to analyze what material existence is made up of. If you want to understand all that, then you'll have to study Vedanta philosophy or study Bhagavatam thoroughly. Okay, we'll move on. 42. Tamimam aham ajam sharira bhajam Hriti hriti thishtitam atma kalpitanam Pratidrisham iva naikadhar kamekam sammadhigatosmi vidhuta bhedamoha. Now I can meditate with full concentration upon that one Lord, Sri Krishna, now present before me, because now I have transcended the misconceptions of duality in regard to his presence in everyone's heart, even in the hearts of the mental speculators. He is in everyone's heart. The sun may be perceived differently, but the sun is one. So ham kritarthosmi. So I am very, so I have become successful. He conveys this in the current verse. Tamimam ajam samyak adhigatah praptah asmi. So I have attained Lord Krishna, the unborn, supreme, samyak tvamaha, fully attained this Lord. So what is that fullness of attainment? That is explained here. Vidhuta bhedamoha. He has become free from the delusion of plurality concerning the Supreme Lord. Tadartham bhedasya upadikatvamaha. And then he explains that the plurality with regard to the Supreme Lord is due to upadhis, material designations. Atmakalpitanam, swayam, nirmitanam, sharira bhajam, aninam, kriti kriti, pratikridayam, dhishtitam, adhishtitam. The Supreme Lord himself is situated in the bodies, in the individual hearts of the living creatures who have accepted bodies, which are due to their own, which are actually their own creations, meaning that I perform certain fruitive activities or sinful activities and I get a particular body. So it is actually considered my creation. Adhishtaya sthitam iti yavat. So the Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart as the governing principle. Akaralopastvarshaha, aikatha, anekatha, and is present in a plurality of forms. Adhisthana Vedat, there's a typing mistake here also. Adhisthana Vedat Anekada Bhatam Ityartha. Because the locations are many, he appears to be many. Atra Drishtantaha. An example to explain that. Sarva Praninam Drisham Drisham Pratyekam Eva Arkam Anekada Praditam Iva. Just as the one single sun may be seen by all the creatures as many suns or seen in different ways. Lord Shri Krishna is the one absolute supreme personality of Godhead, but he has expanded himself into his multi-plenary portions and multi-differentiated portions by his inconceivable energy. The conception of duality is due to ignorance of his inconceivable energy. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.11, the Lord says that only the foolish take him to be a mere human being. Such foolish men are not aware of his inconceivable energies. By his inconceivable energies present in everyone's heart, as the sun is present before everyone all over the world. The Paramatma feature of the Lord is an expansion of his plenary portions. He expands himself as Paramatma in everyone's heart by his inconceivable energy. And he also expands himself as the glowing effulgence of Brahmajyoti by expansion of his personal glow. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita that the Brahmajyoti is his personal glow. Therefore, there is no difference between him and his personal glow, Brahmajyoti, or his plenary portions as Paramatma. Less intelligent persons who are not aware of this fact consider Brahmajyoti and Paramatma to be different from Sri Krishna. This misconception of duality is completely removed from the mind of Bhishmadeva. So, when one becomes spiritually realized and he understands in what sense Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are one, and in what sense there is a gradation in realization. And he is now satisfied that it is Lord Shri Krishna only who is all in all in everything. This enlightenment is attained by the great Mahatmas or devotees, as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.19. The devotees realize that Vasudeva is all in everything, and that there is no existence of anything without Vasudeva. Vasudeva, or Lord Shri Krishna, is the original Supreme Person, as now confirmed by Bhishmadeva. Since Bhishmadeva is one of the 12 Mahajanas or great authorities, both the neophytes and the pure devotees must try to follow in his footsteps. That is the way of the devotional line. The worshipable object of Bhishmadeva is Lord Shri Krishna as Parthasarathi, and that of the gopis is the same Krishna in Vrindavan as the most attractive Shyama Sundara. Sometimes less intelligent scholars make a mistake and think that the Krishna of Vrindavan and that of the battle of Kurukshetra are different personalities. But for Bhishmadeva, this misconception is completely removed. Even the impersonalist object of destination is Krishna as the impersonal Jyoti. And the yogi's destination of Paramatma is also Krishna. Krishna is both Brahmajyoti and localized Paramatma. But Brahmajyoti and Paramatma are not full representations of Krishna. In Krishna, there are both Brahmajyoti and Paramatma, but in Brahmajyoti or Paramatma, there is no Krishna or sweet relations with Krishna. In his personal feature, Krishna is both Parthasarathi and Shyamsundara of Vrindavan, but only in his impersonal feature is he the Brahmajyoti and the Paramatma. Achyutanam.
Prabhu, as it is mentioned in this paragraph only, that less intelligent scholars make a mistake and think that Krishna of Vrindavan and that of battle of Kurukshetra are different personalities. So I just want to understand this. We have heard that Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, so it is Vasudeva Krishna. So they are also same personality, different personalities, and like this line
No,
and
but
that.
it's one Supreme Lord Krishna only. Just that corresponding to his moods, he exhibits various forms.
Okay.
That's all.
Personality is same.
Yeah, there's only one Krishna. There's only one God.
Okay.
Great Mahatmas like Bhishmadeva realize all these different features of Lord Shri Krishna, and therefore they worship Lord Krishna with one pointed attention, knowing him as the origin of all features. Since the Brahmajyoti is actually the collection of all living entities, the oneness between the living entities and the Supreme Lord is understood to be qualitative oneness. The Paramatma and Bhagavan, they're actually one, but the Paramatma does not manifest Bhagavan's features of dealings with his spiritual energies. So there is another type of gradation there. Another way of explanation is Brahman exhibits the Sat feature of the Lord. Paramatma reveals his Sat Chit feature, and Bhagavan reveals his Satchidananda feature. Okay. 43. Sutavacha. Krishna evam bhagavati manovag drishti vrittibhihi atmanyatmanam aveshya sontashvasa uparamat. Suta Goswami said, thus Bhishmadev merged himself in the super soul, Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with his mind, speech, sight, and actions. And thus he became silent and his breathing stopped. Manu Vag Drishtinam Vrittibhihi Paramatmani Shri Krishna. So, with the functioning of his mind, words, vision, fixed on Lord Sri Krishna. Antareva Vina Shwasaha Yasyasaha. He breathed his last. The stage attained by Vishmadev while quitting his material body is called Nirvikalpa Samadhi because he merged himself into thinking of the Lord by engaging his mind in remembering the Lord's different activities, his speech in chanting the glories of the Lord, and his sight in seeing the Lord personally present before him. Thus, all his activities became concentrated upon the Lord without deviation. This is the highest stage of perfection. It is possible for everyone to attain this stage by practice of devotion service. The devotion service of the Lord consists of 9 principles of service activities, and they are hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet, worshipping, praying, executing the orders, fraternizing, and fully surrendering. Any one of them or all of them are equally competent to award the desired result, but they require to be practiced persistently under the guidance of an expert devotee of the Lord. The first item, hearing, is the most important item of all, and therefore, hearing the Bhagavad Gita and later on Srimad Bhagavatam is essential for the serious candidate who wants to attain the stage of Bhishmadev at the end. The unique situation at Bhishmadev's time of death can be attained even though Lord Krishna may not be personally present. His words of the Bhagavad Gita or those of Srimad Bhagavatam are identical with the Lord. They are sound incarnations of the Lord, and one can fully utilize them to be entitled to attain the stage of Sri Bhishmadev, who was one of the 8 Vasus. Every man or animal must die at a certain stage of life, but one who dies like Bhishmadev attains perfection, and one who dies forced by the laws of nature dies like an animal. That is the difference between a man and an animal. The human form of life is especially meant for dying like Bhishmadev. 44. Sampadyamanam agyaya Bhishmam brahmani nishtale sarve bhahuvaste tushnim vayamsi vaddinatyaye. Knowing that Bhishmadev had merged into the unlimited eternity of the Supreme Absolute, all present there became silent like birds at the end of the day. Nishkale, Nirrupadho Paramatmani. He had attained the Supreme Soul, Paramatma, who was without any of these material designations. Sampadyamanam, Militam, Agyaya, Alakshya. So they recognized that he had attained him. He had become one with him. He had become one with him in the sense that he had met the Supreme Lord with the spirit of oneness of interest. That is indicated by Sridhar Swami's usage of the very word militam. Vayamsi Pakshinaiva. To enter into or to become merged into the unlimited eternity of the Supreme Absolute means to enter the original home of the living being. The living beings are all component parts and parcels of the absolute personality of Godhead, and therefore they are eternally related with Him as the servitor and the served. The Lord is served by all His parts and parcels as a complete machine is served by its parts and parcels. Any part of the machine removed from the whole is no longer important. Similarly, any part and parcel of the absolute detached from the service of the Lord is useless. The living beings who are in the material world are all unintegrated parts and parcels of the supreme whole, and they are no longer as important as the original parts and parcels. There are, however, more integrated living beings who are eternally liberated. The material energy of the Lord, called Durga Shakti, or the superintendent of the prison house, takes charge of the unintegrated parts and parcels, and thus they undergo a conditioned life under the laws of material nature. When the living being becomes conscious of this fact, he tries to go back home, back to Godhead, and thus the spiritual urge of the living being begins. This spiritual urge is called Brahma Jigyasa, or inquiry about Brahman. Principally, this Brahma Jigyasa is successful by knowledge, renunciation, and devotional service to the Lord. Jnana or knowledge means knowing everything of Brahman, the Supreme. Renunciation means detachment from material affection. And devotional service is the revival, the practice of the original position of the living being. The successful living beings who are eligible to enter into the realm of the Absolute are called the Jnanis, the Yogis, and the Bhaktas. The Jnanis and Yogis enter into the impersonal rays of the Supreme, but the Bhaktas enter into the spiritual planets known as the Vaikunthas. In these spiritual planets, the Supreme Lord as Narayana predominates, and the healthy, unconditioned living beings live there by rendering loving service to the Lord in the capacity of servant, friend, parent, and fiancé. There, the unconditioned living beings enjoy life in full freedom with the Lord, whereas impersonalist Jnanis and Yogis enter into the impersonal glowing effulgence of the Vaikuntha planets. The difference between the attainment of the Jnanis and Yogis, see, there are two different types of Sayujya. One is called Brahma Sayujya, and the other is Ishvara Sayujya. Brahma Sayujya means to merge into the Brahma Jyoti. Ishvara Sayujya means to merge into the spiritual body of the Lord. So, the Jnanis, they certainly attain Brahma Sayujya. So, it appears that these are the impersonalistic yogis. We refer to both of them as impersonal because they are not interested in eternal service to the Supreme Lord in the spiritual realm. The Vaikuntha planets are all self-illuminating like the sun, and the rays of the Vaikuntha planets are called the Brahmajyoti. The Brahmajyoti is spread unlimitedly. And the material world is but a covered portion of an insignificant part of the same Brahmajyoti. This covering is temporary, and therefore it's a sort of illusion. Bhishma Dev is a pure devotee of the Lord. As a pure devotee of the Lord, entered the spiritual realm in one of the Vaikuntha planets, where the Lord in his eternal form of Parthasarthi predominates over the unconditioned living beings who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. The love and affection which bind the Lord and the devotee are exhibited in the case of Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev never forgot the Lord in his transcendental feature as Parthasarthi, and the Lord was present personally before Bhishma Dev while he was passing to the transcendental world. That is the highest perfection of life. 45. Tatradundu bhayonedu devamanava vaditaha shamsu sadhavu rajyam khapetu pushpa vrishtayaha. Thereafter, both men and demigods sounded drums in honor, and the honest royal order commenced demonstrations of honor and respect, and from the sky fell showers of flowers. There is a question in chat. Whereas the impersonalist Jnanis and Yogis enter into the impersonal glowing effulgence of the Vaikuntha planets. Here, Yogi is supposed to see the Lord as Paramatma. They see the Lord as Paramatma. They want to merge into the Supreme Lord's body. And therefore, Prabhupada has clubbed them with the Jnanis, impersonal Jnanis. Yes, they always consider that. They consider Brahman to be a feature of Paramatma. They consider Bhagavan to be a feature of Paramatma also. This is how the yogis think. Achyutanam Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Prabhuji, I was wondering why this stroke number 44 is told in a way that impersonalists can play with it. I mean, it could have been directly said, what is said in purport, why there is impersonalist in general.
Why there is impersonalist what? Somehow your voice is not either clear or say again slowly.
I was asking that slope number 44 is gives impersonalists a chance to twist the words, like they can use this slope for their in their favor. So this, why was it written in this way? It could have been directly stated that he went back to Godhead or Vaikuntha.
People can always come up with any number of misconceptions. Just like Ritvigism is a misconception. And they will give hundreds and hundreds of quotations. Hundreds of quotations they'll give from Prabhupada. The Prabhupada says here, Prabhupada says that. See, why did he use this word? Why did he use that word? See, therefore, Prabhupada is the only guru. You cannot go by the fact that certain words have been interpreted by a certain group, which may be a very influential group, like the impersonalists are quite an influential group amongst the general populace. So you cannot say that why was it written like this, why was it not written in some other way? If it was written in some other way, then some other group will come and they will interpret it in some other way. So there's no end to this kind of questioning. Why was this particular word used? Or why was this phrase used? It is just normal. It is normal. Even in today's world, they use expressions like this company merged with that company, but nobody has some crazy impersonal misconception about that. So previously, at the time of the writing of Srimad Bhagavatam, this was not necessarily misunderstood to be impersonalism. Okay, we'll continue. 45. Tatra dundu bhayo nedo. No, I did this. 45. Let me see if Sridhar Swami has said anything. Devaihi manavaihi cha vaditaha ragyam madhye ye sadhavaha anasuyavaha. The honest royal order refers to the non-envious kings. Bhishma Dev was respected both by the human beings and by the demigods. The human beings live on Earth and similar other planets in the Bhur and Bhuvar group of planets. But the demigods live in the Swar or heavenly planets, and all of them knew Bhishma Dev as a great warrior and devotee of the Lord. As a Mahajana or authority, he was on the level of Brahma, Narada, and Shiva, although he was a human being. Qualification on a par with the great demigods is possible only on attainment of spiritual perfection. Thus, Bhishma Dev was known all over the universes. And during his time, interplanetary travel was effected by finer methods than the futile endeavors of mechanical spacecraft. When the distant planets were informed of the passing away of Bhishma Dev, all the inhabitants of the upper planets, as well as of the earth, dropped showers of flowers to show due respect to the departed great personality. This showering of flowers from heaven is a sign of recognition by great demigods, and it should never be compared to the decoration of a dead body. The body of Bhishma Dev lost its material effects due to being surcharged with spiritual realization, and thus the body was spiritualized as iron becomes red hot when in contact with fire. The body of a fully self-realized soul is not therefore accepted as material. special ceremonies are observed for such spiritual bodies. The respect and recognition of Bhishma Dev are never to be imitated by artificial means, as it has become a fashion to observe the so-called Jayanti ceremony for any and every common man. According to the authorized Shastras, such a Jayanti ceremony for an ordinary man, however exalted he may be materially, is an offense to the Lord, because Jayanti is reserved for the day when the Lord appears on earth. It is actually specifically meant for Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. Bhishma Dev was unique in his activities, and his passing away to the kingdom of God is also unique. 46. Tasya nirharanadini samparetasya bhargava yudhishthirah karayatva muhurtam dukkhito bhava. O descendant of Bhrigu, Shaunaka, after performing the funeral rituals for the dead body of Bhishma Dev, Maharaj Yudhishthira was momentarily overtaken with grief. Nirharanadini, daha samskaradini, samyak paretasya, muktasya api iti arthaha. So even though Bhishma Dev had completely attained the Supreme Lord, he had become fully liberated. Still, Yudhishthira Maharaj performed the funeral rites for Bhishma. He burnt Bhishma Dev's body and so on. Bhishma Dev was not only a great family head of Maharaj Yudhishthira, but he was also a great philosopher and friend to him, his brothers, and his mother. Since Maharaj Pandu, the father of the 5 brothers headed by Maharaj Yudhishthira, had died, Bhishma Dev was the most affectionate grandfather of the Pandavas and caretaker of the widowed daughter-in-law Kunti Devi. Although Maharaj Dhritarashtra, the elder uncle of Maharaj Yudhishthira, was there to look after them, his affection was more on the side of his 100 sons, headed by Duryodhana. Ultimately, a colossal conspiracy was fabricated to deprive the 5 fatherless brothers of the rightful claim of the kingdom of Hastinapur. There was great intrigue, common in imperial palaces, and the 5 brothers were exiled to the wilderness. But Vishnu Dev was always a sincerely sympathetic well-wisher, grandfather, friend, and philosopher to Maharaj Yudhishthira, even up to the last moment of his life. He died very happily by seeing Maharaj Yudhishthira on the throne. Otherwise, he would have long ago quit his material body instead of suffering agony over the undue sufferings of the Pandavas. He was simply waiting for the opportune moment, because he was sure and certain that the sons of Pandu would come out victorious in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, as his Lordship Shri Krishna was their protector. As a devotee of the Lord, he knew that the Lord's devotee cannot be vanquished at any time. Maharaj Yudhishthira was quite aware of all these good wishes of Bhishma Dev, and therefore he must have been feeling the great separation. He was sorry for the separation of a great soul and not for the material body which Bhishma Dev relinquished. The funeral ceremony was a necessary duty, although Bhishma Dev was a liberated soul. Since Bhishma Dev was without issue, the eldest grandson, namely Maharaj Yudhishthira, was the rightful person to perform this ceremony. See, the idea is this: Bhishma was Kshatriya. When Kshatriyas pass away, their bodies are meant to be burnt, even if he is a liberated soul. It was a great boon to Bhishma Dev that an equally great son of the family undertook the last rites of a great man. 47. Tushtugur munayo Krishta, Krishtam tadgukhya namabhi, tataste Krishna hridaya, swashraman prayayu punaha. All the great sages then glorified Lord Sri Krishna, who was present there by confidential Vedic cues. Then all of them returned to their respective hermitages, bearing always Lord Krishna within their hearts. Tasya gukhya namabhihi, vedoktaihi. So they glorified Lord Shri Krishna by chanting his confidential holy names as found in the Vedas, as mentioned in the Vedas. Means the idea is that there are names of the Supreme Lord, confidential names of the Supreme Lord, like Krishna, Govinda, and so on, whose glories are inconceivable to the ordinary souls and which are hidden deep within the Upanishads. So with that in mind, Sridhar Swami has mentioned this. Tasya Mukhya Nama Bhuji Vedoktaihi. Krishna eva hridayam yesham te Krishna hridayah. The devotees of the Lord are always in the heart of the Lord, and the Lord is always in the hearts of the devotees. That is the sweet relation between the Lord and his devotees. Due to unalloyed love and devotion for the Lord, the devotees always see him within themselves, and the Lord also, although he has nothing to do and nothing to aspire to, is always busy attending to the welfare of his devotees. For the ordinary living beings, the law of nature is there for all actions and reactions, but he's always anxious to put his devotees on the right path. The devotees, therefore, are under the direct care of the Lord, and the Lord also voluntarily puts himself under the care of his devotees only. So all the sages headed by Vyasadeva were devotees of the Lord, and therefore they chanted the Vedic hymns after the funeral ceremony just to please the Lord, who was present there personally. All the Vedic hymns are chanted to please Lord Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 15.15. All the Vedas, Upanishads, Vedanta, here Vedanta refers to Vedanta Sutra, etc., are seeking him only. And all hymns are for glorifying him only. These are themes which repeatedly occur in Srimad Bhagavatam. For him only. Bhagavatam presents monotheism, not polytheism or monism. The sages therefore performed the exact acts suitable for the purpose, and they happily departed for their respective hermitages. 48. Tato Yudhishthiro gatva sah Krishno vijahvayam itaram satvayamasa Gandharim cha tapasvinim. Thereafter, Maharaj Yudhishthira at once went to his capital, Hastinapur, accompanied by Lord Sri Krishna, and there he consoled his uncle and his aunt, Gandhari, who was an ascetic. Pitaram, Dhritarashtra, Tapasvinim, Santapavatim, Tapasvinim can also mean the one who was filled with distress and anxiety. At that time, due to sorrow, she was like an ascetic lady. She was burning in distress because her sons were destroyed, killed. So that lamentation was intolerable for her, and therefore she naturally was living like an ascetic lady at that time. Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, the father and mother of Yudhishthira and his brothers, were the elder uncle and aunt of Maharaj Yudhishthira. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the celebrated couple, having lost all their sons and grandsons, were under the care of Maharaj Yudhishthira. They were passing their days in great agony over such a heavy loss of life, and were practically living the life of ascetics. The death news of Vishnudev, uncle of Dhritarashtra, was another great shock for the king and the queen, and therefore they required solace from Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira was conscious of his duty, and he at once hurried to the spot with Lord Krishna and satisfied the bereaved Dhritarashtra with kind words, as did the Lord also. Gandhari was a powerful ascetic, although she was living the life of a faithful wife and a kind mother. It is said that Gandhari also voluntarily blindfolded her eyes because of the blindness of her husband. A wife's duty is to follow the husband, 100%. Gandhari was so true to her husband that she followed him even in his perpetual blindness. Therefore, in her actions, he was a great ascetic. Besides that, the shock she suffered because of the wholesale killing of her 100 sons and her grandsons also was certainly too much for a woman. But she suffered all this just like an ascetic. Gandhari, although a woman, is no less than Bhishma Dev in character. They are both remarkable personalities in the Mahabharata. Okay. Now, take a commentary of our acharyas from text 40. What is the glory in these warriors who died in the presence of Lord Sri Krishna, attaining sarupya? यतः एतावतः अपि प्रेम्णः जनकत्वं दृश्यते. Because we also see that there are those who have attained love of God, which is far greater than the different kinds of liberation. Kritanukaranam refers to certain gestures of the Lord's heroines. The gestures named Leela, sportive pastimes. This is noted by Srila Rupa Goswami. Kriyanukaranam Leela. These are all features of Mahabharata. Chakravarti Thakur notes that because Bhishma is talking so much about what was the last you heard?
Bhishma, Vishwanath Chakravarti is talking that Bhishma and that's all.
लैपटॉप चेंज करवाइए.
एनिवर्सरी का प्रभु का कंप्यूटर खराब है.
हाँ, लैपटॉप चेंज करवाइए.
Just give me a minute. I'm going to switch the network. Let me see if it works. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm now on my Geodom. I hope it doesn't break now. Anyway, let me repeat this. So Bhishma this Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he points out that Vishnudev was thinking that Lord Krishna might ask him that since you hanker so much, even though you know everything, since you hanker so much for the pastimes related to my being a charioteer of Arjuna, so have you concluded that Arjuna is the most important loving associate of myself? So Bhishma thinks, no, that's not the case. Because there are those who are far more greater than Arjuna. But I don't have the audacity to pray to attain their status. Nevertheless, at the last stage of my life, let me become successful by at least referring to them. With that in mind, he speaks the current verse. They were mad in ecstasy because they were in a state of separation from the Lord. Those who are excessively dull, they attained Sayujya. And those who are most exalted, they attain the highest stage of Prema Bhakti. I am in between both of these groups. So, why would I not attain why would I not enter into your pastimes as a charioteer? This is the implication. So it is not that because you recognize something as greater, you want to be that. You recognize whatever is higher or lower according to reality. And you want to serve Krishna in a particular manner. You are satisfied with that. That's all. तदेवं सर्वशुभ स्वभावत्वमुक्त्वा सर्वपूज्यत्व सर्वमनोहरत्व सर्वदुर्लभदर्शनत्वानि आह मुनिगणेति आत्मा परमात्मा. The Supreme Lord is the super soul of all the creatures. And previously, Bhishmadev had pointed out that Lord Sri Krishna's very nature is all auspicious for everyone. But in text 41, he points out that the Supreme Lord Krishna, he was also worshipable to everyone. He was most charming to everyone. And his very vision was very rare for everyone. This kind of vision. They had all worshipped him during The Rajasuya ceremonies, Agra Puja, comes in Krishna book. Agra Puja means it's something like electing the president of an assembly. Now, in the next text, which is 42, Vishnu wants to establish that this particular person who is sitting, he is situated in everyone's heart. He's situated in the hearts of every embodied creature in the form of his own plenary portion, in the form as the individual Antaryami, the individual inner controller, Paramatma. This is referred to in Bhagavatam, second canto. Some meditate on the Supreme Purusha, who is said to measure one handful as present within the space of the heart of their own bodies. So, even though the Supreme Lord resides in those many forms, I have clearly realized that he is actually one Supreme Personality alone. It is that one supremely blissful form of the Lord that is all-pervading, that has entered into everything. And he has assumed specific forms as the Antaryamis, as the inner rulers. So this has been realized by me because I'm free from the delusion of plurality about him. This delusion of plurality has been removed just by his mercy, only by his mercy. Now I no longer have the delusion characterized by the conception that there are actually many, many gods, which is because I had thought it was impossible for the one form of Bhagavan to be all-pervading in this manner. The cause for his pervasion is stated here. These bodies, they're all caused by the souls. Pradinam nana desha sthana avalokanam prati yathaiko eva arka vriksha kudyad yuparigatattvena tatrapi kuchidrit avyavadhanaha sampurnatvena savyavadhanasta tu asampurnatvena anekada drishyate. Athetyartha. Just as the one sun, there's only one sun in the sky, but various creatures situated in various locations, they have different visions of that one sun. Somebody sees the sun above the tree, somebody sees it above something else, and so on. Somebody sees it while being obstructed, sees the sun is being obstructed through clouds or whatever. Some sees the sun fully, some sees it not fully, some sees it while being obstructed by clouds or something like that. Sri Bhagavad Vigraha Achintya Shaktya Tatha Bhasate. By his inconceivable potencies, the form of Sri Bhagavan appears in that way. Another meaning, the form that I have described in the past, who is sitting in front of me, I have attained the association of that particular form now, even though he is actually situated in the hearts of all the embodied creatures. Even though the Antaryami form is of a different appearance from this form that is in front of me. Right now, I'm seeing this particular form of him, because I do not perceive the other form in this manner, because he has all these capacities. That is the implication. So, there are different places from which the onlookers may perceive. It does not imply that the object of their perception is complete or incomplete in different circumstances. It is always complete only. अमीलितदृग्व्यधारय इति कृष्ण एवं भगवती मनोवाक्काव्यतिभिः इति उपक्रम प्रस्तूयते. The beginning portion of this section and the ending portion of this section and the other features of a scriptural section indicate that he is actually talking about the sacred form of Lord Sri Krishna. Tato nedam padyam brahmaparam vyakhayamiti. Therefore, this verse should not be interpreted to refer to the impersonal Brahman. So in other words, there are certain Tattparya lingas, certain, I think I have explained this before. There are certain signs that can be found in a scriptural passage which indicate the actual intention of that passage. And the first of those 6 signs is the beginning and the end. The beginning and the end, that itself gives a good indication. Both in the beginning and the end of this section, from text 30 to text 43, it is clear that Bhishmadev is focusing and is talking about Krishna, the personality Krishna. He is not talking about the impersonal Brahman as having assumed a form and so on. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur explains this example. The sun may be in the sky and people perceive it in different ways. Each one thinks the sun is on my head, is above my head. But actually, he is there's only one son. There are not many sons. Ayam arthaha. This is the point. Mama kriti yatha yudhishtiradinam vasudevadinam uddhavadinam nandadinam gopikanam cha kriti bhavabhedena prematarathamyena cha pratak pratak lilataya eva yadyapi spurati. Even though the Supreme Lord appears to engage in varied pastimes according to the gradation of love for him and according to the difference in the moods with which one lovingly serves him, to Yudhishthira and company, Vasudeva and company, Uddhava and company, Nanda and company, and the gopis. Tadapi eka eva Krishna iti janami. I understand that all of them are only one Lord Krishna. Atha tesham tattat premanam tattat bhavanam cha utkarsha taratamyam sarvamaham janamyeva. And I know all about the gradation of the exalted statuses of their love for the Lord, as well as their moods, attitudes that they have regarding the Lord. Tadapi me partha sarathau eva swabhavikyasaktihi. But still, my natural attachment is to Partha Sarathi. Tam tyaktum naiva shaknomi. I cannot give up that natural attachment to him. Urasthite asmins chaturbhuja rupe dharanapi krita sapi akinchit kariva bhuditi. Even this four-handed form, which was situated in front of him, that is not as significant. Baladev Vidyabhushan also explains this conception of plurality or duality in terms of the apparent duality between the object of worship of the yogis who meditate on the Lord within the heart, and Bhishma, who worships, and Parthasarthi, who is worshipped by Bhishma. The Gopalata Upanishad clearly says, Ekopisan Bahudha Yoga Bhati. Lord Gopala is one, and despite that, he manifests himself as many. Means he manifests himself as many Vishnu Tattva forms. The Supreme Lord himself has created the situations for the souls. He himself is situated in the hearts of these conditioned souls. The ruler, as the jivas have been said to be created there are similar expressions found in the Shruti itself. Nacha mokshe jivesh bhedo nishiddha. It is not the difference between the jiva he attains transcendental oneness with the Supreme Lord in a state of non-contamination. He attained Lord Krishna as Parthasarathi. Bhishma was filled with extreme anxiety, spiritual anxiety, to attain the Lord. And he was absolutely one-pointed. Therefore, he gave up his life forces and so on. And becoming completely purified, he attained Lord Krishna. This should be understood from the Upanishads, also Vedanta Sutra 4.2.13. And those who are interested can consult the commentary to the sutra. This also indicates that Parikshit also attained the Supreme Lord. There's a similar statement in the 12th canto about Parikshit's liberation. That also should be understood in the same manner. Nishkala Brahma in the next verse refers to Sri Krishna alone. Sri Krishna is the supreme absolute truth with the form of a human-like being, and he is beyond Maya. Being merged into him simply refers to associating with him. Lord Sri Krishna is said to be in the hearts of all the creatures. It is Bhagavan himself who is present. There is a reference to this fact in the 7th canto. Because Bhishma was a Vasu, can one not argue that as long as one has an official post in a universe, material universe, those official living entities will need to be here as stated in Vedanta Sutra 3.3.33? The answer is no. Because as a pastime, he can expand himself. That's an indication that liberated souls have such capacities in the Chandogya Upanishad. So there is no contradiction with the Mahabharata. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur takes advantage of the example that is given here. Let me read this out. This is very interesting. Evam Bhishmaha Shwa Abhilashitam Parthasarathim Prapa. In this manner, Bhishma he attained Parthasarathi as per his cherished desire. Lokaha tu tat avidvamsaha. But the common people who did not know this, Bhishmo Brahmani Linaha Bhaguva iti jananti sma. Ityaha sampadyeti. But the people thought that Bhishma had merged into Brahma. That is noted in this text. Padya. Agyane drishtantaha. The example about their ignorance is Vayamsi Pakshinaha Dinasya Atyai Avasane Sati Dinam Nadrishtam iti Dinasya Swarupad Vamsameva Gyatva Yatha Tushnim Bhavanti Na Shabdayante iti Arthaha. Just as birds at the end of the day, they don't see day. They think day itself as being destroyed, and therefore they become silent. Natu vastutaha dinam nashyati. In reality, the day is not destroyed. Tat kshanepi varshantare tasya stitehe avagamat yamat chatushthayanantaram tatrapi punaragamat. Because in some other part of the universe, there is day, That can be understood. And after 8 hours, after a few hours, then again one will see data. Evam bhishmasya api atyaye bhishmaha muktah iti agya vidanti. Similarly, when Bhishma had passed away, these ignorant people, they thought that Bhishma had become liberated. Vigyastu tadaiva prakata prakashe rathat charanapanena krishnena bhumau dhavata saha Bhishma yudyate eva iti punaragami krishnavatarē tena saha Bhishma avirbhavishyati eva jananti. Those who were learned, however, they knew that within the material manifestation of Krishna's pastimes, Bhishma, again in the next Krishna incarnation, is fighting with Lord Krishna, who was running on the ground with a chariot wheel in his hand to fight with Bhishma. So they know that Bhishma is going to reappear. Another meaning, this Nishkala Brahma is Sri Krishna himself. But he did not attain Brahma Sahibja because the eternal associate Bhishma, he had prayed for attraction to the Supreme Lord without hankering for any fruitive results. He had not even hankered for liberation. And it is not appropriate that the Supreme Personality of Godhead forcefully gives something which is not desired. I can share it. This is text. This is text. And it is Vasu's giving up the body that had been shown here. It was Vasu in an Amsha, who was an officer in the universe and who had attained the world of Bhagavan. The eternal associate Vishnu, he had entered into the unmanifest pastimes and attained Parthasarthi. That has been stated. Because that is the custom of the world. because Pretasya indicates that
Very well.
Hare Krishna.
हाँ जी चित्ता प्रभु हरिवाल.
Meeting is being recorded, so whatever you are speaking, it will be recorded.
अरे
The
that
letters.
that good, but what will do? Okay, come close, come.
just a couple of minutes. Done. Idamiha bodhyam. This should be understood. Should share it also. Very interesting. Almost done. It will take probably 2 or 3 minutes only. Bhishmaha Krishnam prapa. Bhishma attained Krishna. Samyak param Krishnam itasya. Iti artha. Because of the word samparetasya, which indicates that he had attained the Supreme Being Krishna. Tat pravishto vasuhutu. But Vasu, who had entered into that associate's body, internal associate's body, Swargamagat, he attained Swarga, Adhikarante tasya moksho bhavi. And at the end of his official tenure, his liberation is, he's supposed to get liberated. Yavad adhikaram avastidra adhikari karnam iti nyayam, because of the sutra 3.3.33. The confidential holy names mentioned in the scriptures are the ones such as Bhakta-vatsala, Krishna, who is subordinate to the affection of his devotees, and so on. Yoga Swami himself says, Tustarke Mahima Venjaka Namavti, Krishna Govinda Ityadi. Okay, that's done. Shakaputra Veshya Vipasinda Devacha Bhattanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.